We all need connection. We all need a sense of belonging. And that sense of community does call us. It calls us to really show up in leadership. Not in a sense of formal leadership necessarily, but to really pay attention to what I'm putting out there in the world, how I'm showing up, what I am giving in my day-to-day interactions to those around me. And I don't think there's anything more important in our world today than to really connect with our true self and give that away to the world. Because each and every one of us, each and every one of you has something to give that only you can give. Your presence matters. It makes a difference. Your voice is important. It needs to be heard. My gratitude, thank you, Carl, inspiration. I bet you guys don't know that tomorrow is Family Day in Canada. So that held a special place in my heart. And every Sunday is UCOH Family Day, is it not? Yes. So today is part 5 in the series on Parker Palmer's book, Let Your Life Speak. And this book is about finding our true vocation, not from a sense of a career, but about really anchoring in and really discovering from the depths of our being our true self, that divine essence, that Christ within, and then choosing to let that voice resound in the way we live our lives. And, you know, this journey to find our true selves, our voice, is not necessarily always grace and ease. There are twists and turns around this journey, places in which things don't seem to be going well, places in which our way forward seems to be blocked and closed. There are times of grief and loss and failure and even depression. And in the past 2 weeks, I gifted other people with giving those lessons. And I want to acknowledge my friend, Reverend Doug Dorr, who spoke 2 weeks ago, and Tammy Lorraine, for doing that very tender work and inviting you into that very tender space. And, you know, it's always a little bit unsettling to delve into those things, but they are so much a part of the journey. And I was very touched this morning when Michael Ray shared that his spirit group, his spirit circle that is exploring this work, talked about how much they appreciated the opportunity to really talk about those things. We have to do that, right, in our journey, but we don't want to stay there. And here's the thing, Parker Palmer talks about coming out of his own journey of depression with a new sense of purpose, a new sense of life. There is something about that journey deep within into the darkness that creates greater clarity, a greater sense of purpose. And we come out of it more alive, more committed to letting our life speak, to showing up and really allowing who we are to be set free in the world. And Parker Palmer talks about this aspect of it as really about leading from within, that there is a sense in this journey in which we discover that we are sacred parts of this whole, and that each one of us is a follower and a leader, that each of us comes to this journey seeking to give more of ourselves to the world. And I was tempted this morning to just read the book, because there's so much here. If you haven't read the book, please do. But Parker Palmer talks about coming out of that journey, and he talks about it in the context of all the wisdom traditions, saying, if you go far enough on the inner journey, they all tell us, all the wisdom traditions tell us, go past ego toward true self. Go past our ego, our sense of self-absorption and self-importance, all the way in to our true self. And you end up not lost in narcissism or self-absorption, but returning to the world, bearing more gracefully the responsibilities of being human. I love that phrase, bearing more gracefully the responsibilities of being a human being. That journey deep within invites us to step forward and take responsibility in new ways, and to recognize that we are sacred and we have something profound to give one another and to the world. And this journey coming out of this dark place reinvigorates our sense of connection. It invites us back into community, which is such a vital part of our own well-being. We all need connection. We all need a sense of belonging. And that sense of community does call us. It calls us to really show up in leadership, not in a sense of formal leadership necessarily, but to really pay attention to what I'm putting out there in the world, how I'm showing up, what I am giving in my day-to-day interactions to those around me. And I don't think there's anything more important in our world today than to really connect with our true self and give that away to the world. Because each and every one of us, each and every one of you has something to give that only you can give. Your presence matters. It makes a difference. Your voice is important. It needs to be heard. But this journey to community, this idea of leading from within and giving expression to our essence is complex. It requires deep self-awareness. It requires intentionality. It requires an ownership of our foibles, which all of us have. And it requires a deep, deep sense of personal responsibility. Parker Palmer says, we can make choices about what we are going to project. And we're always projecting. I mean, what's in here gets spread out in the world before us, unless we're totally ready to transcend. And if you're there, please come teach me. So we can make choices about what we're going to project. And with those choices, we help to grow the world that is. Consciousness precedes being. Sounds kind of unity-like, right? But Parker Palmer is a Quaker. Consciousness, yours and mine, can form, deform, or reform the world. Let's sit with that a minute. Your consciousness can form, deform, or reform the world. When I read that statement, I think, boy, it's so important that I pay attention, that I look within and find out what's there, and very gently interact with my world, very consciously interact with my world. And then Palmer says, our complicity in world-making is a source of awesome and sometimes painful responsibility. Complicity. We are complicit in what gets created out there. It's a source of awesome and often painful responsibility. And it is a hope, a promise, an invitation to be a force for good, to be a force for positive change. I added some words to Parker Palmer there. A profound hope for change. It lies in you, each and every one of you. It is the ground of our common call to leadership, the truth that makes leaders of us all. When I read this quote from Palmer, I am so tuned in to the basic teachings of unity. Our thoughts create our reality because we move them out into the world. We are co-creators of this life experience. And if there's a mess out there, or if there's something rich and joyous, we have a part in that creative journey. And we need to pay attention. Charles Fillmore says that God creates in the ideal, and man carries out in the manifest world what God has idealized. God's spirit, source, creates the ideas. It creates the ideal that wants to be expressed in physical form. Our role as co-creators with God is to connect with that ideal and seek ways to give it birth, to give it expression in our world. Not a light undertaking, right? But so profoundly important. It speaks to the power of every little action. There's a prayer I use, a Buddhist prayer, that talks about my inheritance is the results of my thoughts, my words, and my actions. What I give the world results from how I show up. And sometimes the way I show up needs a little adjusting, right? Which is true for all of us. I taught a class yesterday on accountability as the intersection between love and truth. And there was a rich discussion yesterday, in the group about this quote from Bill O'Brien. the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. The success, the results, the outward picturing of an intervention, of an action we take, is dependent on our interior condition. So whatever you're dealing with, pay attention in here first. Lead from within. Let the power and activity of Spirit in, through, and as you be your guiding force in how you show up in the world. And when you do that, when you're intentional about that, you are a leader, whether you have a title of leader or not. Rosa Parks, sitting on the bus, in the front of the bus, chose to be a leader just by the power of her action. And Rosa Parks, like so many others, knew the depths of the hard stuff. She explored it, she transformed it, and she stepped forth from a place of wholeness, irrespective of the difficult experiences in her life. Palmer says that good leadership comes from people who have penetrated their own inner darkness and arrived at the place where we are one with one another. People who can lead the rest of us to a place of hidden wholeness because they have been there and know the way. I love the term hidden wholeness. It comes from the Christian mystic Thomas Merton in a poem called Hagia Sophia. And Sophia, in the Hebrew tradition, is the voice of wisdom. In the ancient Hebrew tradition, wisdom takes a female form. It is the voice of inner wisdom, the voice of intuition, the guidance of spirit. And what that guidance shows us is a hidden wholeness. That irrespective of how unworthy we may feel or how broken we may feel because of some experience, there is a hidden wholeness deep within us. And when we find that, we become that source of hope for our world. Parker Palmer says, there is in all things a hidden wholeness. There is in all things an inexhaustible sweetness and purity, a silence that is a foundation of action and joy. It rises up in gentleness and flows out to me from the unseen roots of all created beings. There is in each of you a wholeness hidden underneath all the stuck energy, all the difficulties, all the not good enoughs. And it is vital that you find that wholeness. Allow it to rise up. Allow it to lead you forward, to lead us all forward as one community of love in this world. I invite you to find that wholeness and lead us all. God bless.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful.